not even, we're not there yet.
Okay.
We're just beginning, but I'll
Hey,
keep you posted.
I'll work with you.
That was the whole main thing of we're ready to roll then. Turn the recorder on.
Now and then we'll get started. Since they did border control without them, I don't want to do the council meeting without them.
What can I say, buddy? I was born.
I feel Caucus.
Meeting starts at 7:30, right?
I had the boss sound.
Huh? Yeah.
Give it about 15 minutes. You think you'll be good then? Then you have another 15. Then we have another meeting. Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Hey, you didn't have Tuesday on it.
How are you? How was?
Oh, that's right. What happened? Okay.
We had a good time.
Wow.
We had about 150. We hit about 150. We did cheerleaders. We had a great turnout. It was very good.
Change format. I wonder how that. I don't know. Who knows?
Good evening, everyone.
Doo-wop.
Welcome to the November 21st, 2017 caucus prior to the council meeting. I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Scott?
Here.
Bergia?
Here.
Salvatore? Here. Troyer?
Here.
Powers? McDonald?
Here.
Mancini?
Here.
Would everyone please stand and join in the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay, thank you. We have one item on the agenda tonight, so we'll go to the Safety Committee Chairman, Councilman Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an ordinance requesting certification to enforce the 2017 Ohio State Building Codes within the city of Brook Park, declaring an emergency, introduced by Mayor Coyne. This is a little bit more than just a house cleaning item. I'm asking council to consider putting it on tonight's council agenda for passage. And at this time, Mr. Chairman, if we could call up the building commissioner, I think he's in the audience, he can explain why it's important that we consider this evening.
Mr. Hurst, would you like to come to the podium?
This came to the city late from the state of Ohio. The enforcement of the new codes went into effect November 1st. So without the ordinance, we're ultimately unable to enforce the new codes that are in effect by the state, which is how we get our certification. We adopt and agree to enforce the model code of the state of Ohio, modeled after the international codes. So it came to us late. I got this in, I want to say, the second week of October. I went down to the state, picked up all the codes. They went over everything with us. I came back. Carol and I sat down. We went through all of our old stuff, put in the new stuff. She prepared the legislation, and here we've got it.
Anyone on council have any questions? Councilman Mancini?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ted, again, as Councilman Salvatore stated, this is something we'd like to get probably completed more or less ASAP.
I would. I think it's good for us. It's good for the city. We are a certified department, and that certification, obviously, it controls insurance rates for the city, for the residents, for the businesses. We're certified through the state of Ohio to enforce these codes. And without being able to enforce the new code that's in effect, it kind of sets us back a little bit. I don't know if it does a lot of damage, but we don't have a whole lot of choice because we're certified. We're either going to adopt these codes and enforce them, or we're gonna become our own code city and enforce whatever we feel is good, and that changes a whole lot of outlook and financial situations for every business homeowner and the city.
Okay, and from the way you're speaking, that's probably not a direction I assume we don't want to go? Or?
I don't think so. I think this is, you know, it was delayed, obviously late coming from the state to us, and therefore it just kind of trickled down. I was actually hoping to get it done prior to the first, but I knew that was going to be impossible to get done, just the process of it, getting it onto the caucus, getting it moved, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, it's here. I would greatly appreciate getting it moved if possible and getting it passed tonight.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Council President Estorino?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The question I have is, I looked at some of the old legislation that we had passed, because we passed something in 2002, 2008, and when we passed it under those ordinances, they referenced Section 3781 of the revised code, which deals with the building. I think it's something dealing with the building department area. And this one, we're referencing the revised code, Section 731, which deals with the municipal corporation type thing. So I just wondered why we're doing it different, because I had some concerns or questions about if we do it under 731. When I read that section of the law, it talked about we have to comply with 731.21 through 25, which deals with some of the publications and postings and stuff like that. So I just wondered why we went to revised code 731 in the ordinance versus 3781.
That was probably a mistake on there. It's a good catch. That should be under the 1381.
3781?
Yeah, 3781. It's the adoption of the code itself.
Yes.
731 I'd have to look at. I'm not sure if that might have something to do with part of the residential code, which is separate from this.
731 just deals with, it deals with how the city operates, different things like that. So it's
Again, that-
publication of ordinances and resolutions, and it deals with adopting standard or technical ordinances and codes. But there's a lot more requirements on posting of stuff like that. And I just think if we passed it back in 2008, using that revised code, I just think that we would do it the same way,
Under 37.
under
Yeah,
3781.
that's, the last code update we had was, for the building was 2011, I believe, that's the last code update for us. And one of the reasons that this was probably a week and a half or 2 weeks later than I wanted it to be was I thought at that time language was put into the legislation that, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, when the state adopted the code and it went into effect, we automatically fell into the effective date. But I'm finding out that that's not something that can be done. Every 3 years typically, this time it was more, but every 3 years when the cycle changes, we do have to come back with legislation and update it. We can't make it continuous as the state does. So I was about a week and a half late or so finding that out. I thought we were automatically covered.
Okay, so based on that, Mr. Chairman, I would suggest maybe it's under the second whereas, where in the last line it says, the Ohio Board of Building Standards pursuant to section 731.231 of the Ohio Revised Code. Based on the previous ordinances we had, it would be section 3781 parentheses E, parentheses, of the Ohio Revised Code.
And again, I may have pulled the wrong one and gave it to the law department at the time.
Okay, anything else?
No, that was it, thank you.
Any other questions? Councilman Troyer?
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Hurst, you mentioned that we never updated this in 14, which would have been on 3. So we've been doing fine and well under the 2011.
There was no 14. 2011 was the last state code.
State code.
Yes, the state
But
has
there's
not
been-
adopted a new
There's
code.
been, I know for a fact there's been electrical code 14, correct?
The electrical code is 2000, that we're fall under is the 2015 NEC.
15, okay.
15. The NEC isn't updated. It's in there, the dates are in there. That's why the international code, energy code, it's not all 2017. The only thing 2017 is building, plumbing, and mechanical. The IECC is
2012.
12, and I think the NEC is 15.
Actually, I think it was 14, but, okay, doesn't matter. 1 year doesn't matter. So, can you give us, I have this, we have this ordinance here. It doesn't tell us when any of the changes are. But at any rate, you kind of explained it a little bit, and I guess it's a little different than the NEC, which I'm familiar with, more familiar with, on how it works every 3 years. We just, you talked about certification, this type of thing. Do we, what happens if we just continue using what we have? Because what I'm saying, my issue is I don't know what any of these changes are. What I'm concerned about is I know the state, had to be 05, 04, right around 05 came up with some codes, code changes that I don't think we ever adopted. That would require hardwired smoke detectors in a rehab on a house. Is that something that is going to be required now under this new program?
Two different codes. That's the residential code of Ohio, has nothing to do with this.
Okay.
We still fall under the old residential code of Ohio. It has not been updated by the state.
Okay.
The building code, the mechanical code, and the plumbing code,
So this is just commercial
This
and
is-
retail and
and the NEC, which is a reference standard in the building code. The NEC is actually part of, believe it or not, is part of the fire code. It's a reference standard in the fire code. So the building code, the plumbing code, the mechanical code, the fuel gas code, the energy code, those are all, and the NEC are reference standards in the building code. So when the building code speaks of electrical requirements, it automatically reflects you to the NEC. And that's all commercial. This has nothing to do with residential. That code is not changed in the state of Ohio as of right now.
okay. Now, so what I was actually going back to and trying to get, if this didn't come about, okay, we're still able, the building department's still able to enforce the old code, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so there's really no rush because it's just enforcing new codes, additional codes, which again, if you read the legislation, we have no idea what that is, what kind of changes there are and what we're approving. Because once we do approve this and go forward with it, now we have to apply these codes through our building
The
department, correct?
critical part of this is, to be certified, you don't have a choice. You either enforce this code, adopt it and enforce it, or you decertify your department. You don't have a choice. That's how this works. And to tell you what all the code changes were, I'd be more than happy to give you the book of changes and you can go through them.
Well, mostly I'll be looking for the ones that would most affect our city.
They affect every city the same way. It's a state model code. It's the international code that has been Ohioized for us. That's what it is. It's eliminated some of the seismic requirements that you might find in, Los Angeles for earthquakes. But it's put more requirements on energy where we need it here in the state of Ohio as opposed to what they need in cold weather, what they need down in, you know, Florida somewhere. So it's the model code of Ohio. It's enforced throughout the state of Ohio. And not accepting it ultimately means you don't want to be a certified building department. So can it wait a week or two? I'm sure it probably could. But a week or two down the road, you only have two choices. Adopt it and be certified, or don't adopt it and decertify the department. That's detrimental to the citywide.
Okay, and if we decertify,
That bill was your time's up. I'm just kidding, go ahead.
if we're decertified, what does that mean? I mean,
that affects,
our inspectors and everything are still qualified to do the inspections.
but that affects your insurance rates throughout the city. Throughout the city.
How so?
Because your insurance companies are relying on your certification to enforce the codes and agreeing to enforce the codes. If you're not gonna do that, you can enforce anything you want or choose not to enforce what you want.
Okay, are there any new codes that you don't agree with? Are they gonna be overly burdensome on our businesses or established and or newly forming?
No. If you want to read it, you can go back and read the administrative part of the code. This code is to be enforced at its most liberal point, not its most bullisome point, at its most liberal. That's how it's enforced.
Okay, my concern here is I know we don't have to, some of the other codes I know we don't have to necessarily agree to them or approve them.
I'm not sure
My
which ones we're
understanding
talking.
of that. But but I know there was, and I don't want to, I'm thinking, of course, residential, so I'm trying to stay away from the residential. So, all right, so you're saying, is there a time frame on this? Did they, I know you're just notified, but,
The code just went into effect November 1st. So the new code is in effect. We do not have the ability to enforce that new code at this point. So if a project comes tomorrow, we have no ability to plan reviews, et cetera, under the new code, which sets everything backwards.
okay. So at what point would you be decertified?
That's up to the state. They would
Okay.
come in and investigate and find out we're not registered.
So the new code started the first, and all of a sudden, what's today, 21st? Actually, Friday was the 17th. So the 17th, 16th or 17th, we decided to get this legislation printed up, even though technically we're already 3 weeks past that.
That is correct.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and look into this further. I'm going to be talking to you about this during the week if you're available.
That's fine.
Thank you. That's it.
Councilwoman McDowell?
He already answered my question, thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
As Council President pointed out, the section numbers are wrong, and so we can't really pass something if we're not passing, if we're passing what this section code says and not what the actual section code is. So this doesn't, we can't pass this the way it is written. We need to have it rewritten with the right code numbers in there.
Are you finished?
Yes.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, it doesn't have to be rewritten. All it has to do is be amended. And my recommendation as a chairman to the committee would be that we put it on tonight's council agenda, that will give the building commissioner ample time to verify the changes, and we can amend it on the floor as suggested by the president, which was, as the chair, as the commissioner says, a good catch. And I think we should amend this piece of legislation and move forward. There's no one to blame here. This isn't something that was hidden on a stack of papers and say, let's hold this so we can have to rush it through. This is doing business in the city of Brook Park. Something comes forward that needs to be addressed, is put on the agenda, which is why we have the caucus part of the council for open discussion. And I know you don't like it, Mr. Troyer, and that's okay. That's your opinion, and it's fine. I'm just recommending as chairman that we move forward with this, and we get the proper number, and I think Jim already found it. I think he already has the right number. We can amend it right now, but I think the commissioner should look at it, and the law director should look at it, and we should all agree and give it the green light, make the proper amendment, and move forward and pass it. And the chair will entertain a motion to place this on tonight's council agenda, if anybody would like to do so. But if we're just gonna hold it up and it's not gonna pass anyway, then I would accept a motion to put it on the next council agenda.
I'll make that motion if there's support.
Which one?
Support, first or
Which one,
second.
tonight or the next one?
Tonight.
Tonight?
Support.
So we have a motion on the floor to place this on tonight's council agenda, properly supported. Any questions on the motion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mancini,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
Powers,
No?
Troyer,
No.
Salvatore,
Yes? Yes.
Bergeron,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
5-2.
Okay, if I may, Mr. Chairman, before I turn it back over to you,
You need a number.
Yeah.
The ordinance number 11,007-2017.
That'll be item number M2.
number two.
M2 on the agenda, council agenda tonight, under first reading. It'll be ordinance 11,007-2017. That's all right.
So, Mr. Chairman, if we may, would you, as chairman, would you prefer that we recess and get the proper number, or just wait till we get to the council floor and have the proper number by then?
I think we'll just adjourn this and they can check on it.
Okay. That completes my committee, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right, that concludes the items on tonight's caucus prior to the council meeting. Chair will accept a motion to adjourn.
Motion so made.
Support.
Motion to adjourn, it's been properly supported. Clerk, please call the roll on adjournment.
Mancini,
Yes.
Bergeron,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Troyer,
Yes.
Powers, McDonald,
Yes.
Okay, the meeting is adjourned at 7:22. We will convene the council meeting at 7:30.
I'd rather make an amendment when we know that.
So far, right, well, okay.
Right. But when I went in, the first thing they did was put a thing in so they could medicate you through this, you know, and then every step of the way, you got a new chair, and finally you got a chair here, and then you moved your chair here, they did something else to you, another chair, then they put you on a cot and they do something, and then wheel you into the room, and he says, and it was over in like 5 minutes, I was in and out.
What?
So if you ever, like you said, if you ever have to do it, you'll probably take 5 minutes with you.
It's going on the caucus agenda. Yeah. That's next week. Tuesday. No, not this one. It's the caucus agenda. Right. Hey, Carl, you're gonna have another one introduced tonight for the sewer repairs on Forest View. It's gonna go in service. Should I put that in the caucus also?
An FYI.
What do you think you just called me? Call me anything I want. You got a problem with that? Take me. He's underage. He's underage. Everything's so fresh. Your son came up and grabbed me by the arm. Get out of the way.
Ready? You're set?
Ready. Whenever you are.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the November 21st, 2017 regular council meeting for the City of Brook Park. I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Scott?
Here.
Bergio?
Here.
Salvatore?
Here.
Troyer?
Present.
Powers? Here. McDonald?
Here.
Mancini?
Here.
Would everyone please stand and join in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Move to item C, which is approval of minutes of the preceding meetings. We have one item, the regular council meeting that was held on November 14th, 2017.
Motion to approve those November 14th council meeting minutes.
Support.
There's a motion to approve. It's been properly supported. Is there any discussion, corrections, additions, deletions? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll on adoption.
Mancini?
Yes.
McDonald?
Yes.
Powers? Yes. Troyer?
Yes.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, the meeting minutes for November 14th, 2017 have been adopted. That completes the items under letter C. We'll move to letter D, which is reports of standing committees. We'll go to Aviation and Environmental. Councilwoman Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No report this evening.
Thank you. We'll go to the Finance Committee. Councilwoman McDonald.
Thank you. We have one thing under our committee today.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to Legislative Committee. Councilman Troyer.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. No report this evening.
Thank you. We'll go to Parks and Recreation Committee. Councilman Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a few things I'd like to cover for coming up for the holiday season through the rec center. We'll start off tomorrow with the Youth Fun Day. It'll be from 12 to 4. It'll be $5 for non-resident kids, and it's free for our resident kids. They're going to have turkey, bless you, turkey with all the trimming, pizza, everything out there so tomorrow. So it's going to be a nice little event tomorrow. So we'll be kicking off the holiday season at the rec center. Before I get in a little to the winter December schedule, the Toys for Tots registration started today for use 14 and under. The information needed is going to be the child's name, address, telephone number, and the last 4 minutes, last 4 numbers of the child's social security number. Again, you got to show the proof of the address, birth certificate, social security card, all that. That would come from, I believe, the parents' side. The registration's from, obviously now, November 15th, right on through December 1st. Any questions, please contact Mary Ann over at the Recreation Center. It's a very needy cause, and it's a great event to have during the holiday season. A couple things, we have a lot of things going on in December, but a couple highlighted ones I'd like to let you know. The tree lighting ceremony is going to be at 6 o'clock on Friday the 1st. Okay, so it's always a good event, and it's always a good time, and singing, and just lovely event. So hope to see you there on Friday the 1st. On the 9th, that's going to be the craft show over at the rec center. It's going to be from 10 to 3. A lot of them vendors go over there out of their way. All year they're making the gifts and the crafts, and it'd be great if we could have a nice turnout over there and patronize them. A lot of them are local residents also. On the 28th, that'll be a Thursday. That's going to be the seniors' New Year's Eve dance. That's from 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. And again, like many of the events they have over there, it's a really good time and a lot of fun. And I guess even if you were in a senior, you'd have such a good time. You'd have a good time over there. So Rachel, you like that when I see you smiling over there. And then the next day will be the youth New Year's Eve dance, which again, I've been at that a few times too. And that's from 10:30 to 12:30 also. And another great event over there. The rec center staff puts on some fun events for the holidays. So be sure you get over there and enjoy some of them. And everybody have a good Thanksgiving. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll go next to the Planning Committee. Councilman Troyer?
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Planning Committee meeting for the December 4th has been canceled because nothing was applied for, and I believe zoning, I'll let you do that. And that's it, end of my report.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to the Safety Committee. Councilman Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Safety Committee has one item on tonight's agenda. We talked about it at the caucus prior to the council. I was looking for a suspension of the rules tonight so we could move forward after the amendment, but it doesn't appear as if we have the votes to do it. So it'll probably just get moved over to the next council agenda and only get first reading tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We'll go to Service Committee. Councilman Bergio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Service Committee has no report.
Thank you. We'll go to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Councilman Scott.
Yeah, the Board of Zoning is canceled also. The next tentative meeting is January 8th, 2018. That's all.
Thank you. That concludes items under letter D. We'll move to letter E, which is reports of special committees. We'll go to Southwest General Health Center trustee, Councilman Salvatore.
Thanks again, Mr. Chairman. We haven't had a meeting since my last report, so therefore I have no official report this evening, and I will have a report after our next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Berea Board of Education Committee, Councilman Bergio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Likewise, there's no school board meeting until November 27th, and I'll have an update after that.
Okay, thank you. That completes items under letter E. We have nothing under letter F, G, and the mayor's not here for tonight's meeting, so we have nothing under letter H. We'll move to letter I, which is reports and communications from departments, commissions, and other public officials. We'll go to the city engineer, Mr. Piatek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick update on a couple of the projects since the last council meeting. Snow road resurfacing, if you guys have been on that. Zone's down. The contractor's currently working on finishing up the permanent striping. That'll continue through the rest of this week and into next week, weather permitting, and then they'll be doing some cleanup work over there as well. Sylvia reconstruction, the last phase of the mainline concrete pour is currently scheduled for this Saturday, weather permitting. If the weather turns, they'll be setting up to be paving on Monday. So we're getting close over there on Sylvia. The crack seal project, that project's currently scheduled to begin first week of December. So those crews will be out doing some of our streets. Lastly, I just want to give everybody an update that the preliminary rankings for the State Capital Improvement Program, that's the program that we've applied for Holland Road through the Public Works Commission. The preliminary rankings came out Friday, and I'm pleased to announce that the Holland Road project ranked number 5 out of 52 applications. So we were within the first tier of project funding So I'm encouraged that that project will be funded through the state capital improvement program in accordance with the application that we submitted. They still have some appeals to go through, and the final rankings, the final scorings and recommendations down in Columbus, I think is due out sometime at the end of December. But that project is looking positive that we'll be securing some funding for that one. That's all I have this evening.
Thank you. Any questions to the engineer? Councilman Bergio?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ed, on Sylvia Drive, will that loop detect, or the underground loop, would that be repaired right after they get done with that, or have they repaired that already, or?
The loop is actually in the section of concrete that we'll be paving. So as soon as that concrete gets in and we're able to cut that loop, we'll have them go ahead and do that.
Okay, all right, good. That's all I have, and thank you.
Councilman Scott?
Ed, is there any parking restrictions on Middlebrook?
Good question.
I'm sorry?
Are there any parking restrictions on Middlebrook?
What
Well, like cars
section?
parked there with the barrels in the middle of the road, you know, people, I got a few complaints that cars are parked there and then they gotta go, you know, they gotta play dodge them with the barrels and everything.
Are there restrictions right now? You know, it's kind of, the zone's kind of half set up, kind of half taken down. I spoke with Fabrizi about that today and actually yesterday, and they promised me that there was some asphalt work over there that took place today, that the zone will be cleaned up by the end of the day tomorrow. So are there parking restrictions? Right now, I would say that the normal parking, you know, on-street, off-street parking would be in effect for the most part over there. But those barrels down the center line will be gone tomorrow.
Okay, thanks. That's it.
Councilman Mancini?
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Through the chair to Ed, real quick, on this Holland Road, is that from Ingo to Fry?
Yes.
Okay, and if I could touch on the barrels that Councilman Scott had talked about. I mean, usually when there's a construction and barrels all over, I mean, it's almost somewhat like almost anything goes from what I could tell from the projects over on Fry Road, Sylvia, at least the ones that I'm, you know, aware with, and I kind of thought that was standard over on Middlebrook. Whenever there's barrels and they're still pouring, things of that sort. Would the reason be that because they're gonna pour on certain days and the barrels are out still to tell people that, hey, there's still construction here, this is the way you go, this is the way you don't go, until the project's all done. I think Snow Road's a good example of that too, but isn't it until the project's all done, you're gonna see the barrels and it's almost park where you will?
Well, Sylvia is if you're comparing Sylvia with Middlebrook, Sylvia is in a little different state as far as the progress of the construction than Middlebrook. You know, we try to be, you know, lenient on, you know, the people that live there and allow them to proceed, you know, out of their driveways, you know, the best way they can. A lot of times contractors got a dump truck maybe, you know, parked or waiting to get loaded that might, you know, obstruct the normal flow of traffic. So we try to be lenient with the people that, you know, go through there. And I think Sylvia is, I'm not aware of an issue over on Sylvia with, you know, the through traffic.
I haven't had one.
Middlebrook is, I agree, is not, needs to be addressed. And with some of the work that took place over there today, they felt as though they wanted the barrels up to keep the zone somewhat intact, but you know, without some of the road closed signs and the barricades that blew over or blew away, it's not crystal clear as to what the intended traffic flow, you know, would be there. And that's why I told them yesterday and, you know, reinforced it today that they need to get that cleaned up.
Okay, thank you, that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Council, any other questions, engineer? Thank you, Mr. Piatek. We'll move to the law director, Mrs. Horvath.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. At the last meeting, I had detailed the various cases that we have as pending litigation. At this point in time, not much has changed in the ensuing week, so we'll let that report stand. with regard to the issues concerning the piece that was on the caucus agenda with regard to the Ohio State building codes, I took a quick opportunity to go in and look at the Ohio Revised Code. It appears to me that the section which is listed in the legislation is correct. I'll defer any further discussion of it to the time when council decides to take up item M2, but I did bring over that section if the clerk at a later time in this meeting wants to copy it. And other than that, I have nothing further.
Okay, council, any questions to the law director? Councilman Mancini?
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. Carol, real quick, I got a couple things, and sitting over there at the law department, and I know you're busy over there. Is there, I call you tomorrow and maybe get an update on them?
Absolutely, and the one item that we had discussed, I was going to have the Board of Elections look at also. So
Okay.
that would be super if you could do that in the morning.
I would appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mrs. Horvath, the only question I have deals with the legislation that we passed last week on the medical marijuana. We passed an extension because on Tuesday because it was expiring on Thursday. But it's my understanding that the mayor has not signed that legislation. So it didn't go into effect because it didn't get his signature. So I didn't know if we would need to pass something else because the legislation was passed as we were extending the moratorium. But as it stands right now, my understanding is if without him signing the legislation is not in effect yet. So I don't know if you can determine whether or not we need to pass another one or how that can be handled.
If I may, I don't know exactly when the final date for a veto process would be in effect. So what I will do is I will confirm that with the mayor and send you and all of council
Okay, 'cause
a brief opinion on it.
it looks like,
tomorrow.
I mean, it's 10 days it's written, and that would be on Saturday. So we, as far as the clerk and I, we thought it was like it would move it to Monday because Saturday's not a business day. So, but he did, he was offered the opportunity to sign it last Tuesday, and he said he's not going to sign the legislation. I don't know if he just wasn't going to sign it that night, or if he's got 10 days to sign it or veto it. But it could go past without his signature. But my question is, the moratorium expired on Thursday. If that legislation wasn't in effect because it didn't get his signature, do we have to change the legislation? Because what we passed was an extension, but as my understanding right now, there is no moratorium because it didn't have a signature.
You may need to pass another piece.
So if you can check into
And what
that.
I will do is I'll endeavor to make sure that I confirm that tomorrow morning also.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir. Any other questions of the law director? Okay, thank you. We'll move to the finance director, Mr. Single.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tomorrow, Wednesday, November 22nd, the administration will bring over two ordinances to City Council to hopefully have placed on next week's caucus meeting. One is the final appropriations for 2017, and the other piece of legislation is the 2018 temporary appropriation ordinance. If there are any questions from City Council prior to next Tuesday's meeting, please let me know. Other than that, Mr. Chairman, I want to wish all residents of Brook Park a happy Thanksgiving. That concludes my report tonight.
Thank you. Any questions of the finance director? Okay, seeing no questions, that complete.
After you're done with this, I need to make a request. So after you're done with,
After we're completed with letter I?
yes.
We are completed with, since nobody
Okay.
else has questions to the finance director, we would be completing letter I under the agenda.
Okay, if I may, Mr. Council President, I just thought of something, and I'd like to just have the clerk go back, because this piece of legislation I'd like to bring forward, but she doesn't have it right now, so I'd like to take a minute, just go back and get it, have it introduced.
Why?
Since we're moving to letter J, you need
Yes.
to go get the legislation?
Yes.
No, he's gonna get it. All right, so we'll.
I'll need her to get it.
Okay. Council, I'm going to ask you to give us a short recess for the councilman, because we're moving to letter J, which deals with introduction of legislation, and he wants to get legislation to be introduced tonight. So I would ask council to make a motion for a short recess to allow him and the clerk to go get that.
Motion so made.
Support.
Okay, a motion has been made, it's been properly supported to take a short recess to permit the councilman and the clerk to get legislation to be introduced. Clerk, please call the roll.
Troyer.
Yes.
Powers.
Yes.
McDonald.
Yes.
Mancini.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Bergio.
Yes.
Salvatore.
No.
Okay.
Oh, gosh, I thought I was ignorant.
Okay. 781. All right.
Okay, there you go.
But this,
We have two pieces.
We have two pieces. It's gonna be legislative.
Okay, council, I'd like to entertain a motion to reconvene the council meeting.
Motion so made.
support.
Okay, there's a motion to reconvene the council meeting, it's properly supported. Clerk, please call the roll.
Troyer.
Yes.
McDonald.
Yes.
Powers. Mancini.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Bergio.
Yes.
Salvatore.
Yes.
Back in session at 7:53. We'll move to letter J, which is other communications and petitions and verbal approval and introduction of new legislation. And introduced by Mayor Coyne, we have an ordinance that authorizes a construction, B and BF construction to complete sanitary sewer repairs near Forest View Circle. We'll place this in the Service Committee. And we have a resolution honoring astronaut and Senator John Glenn. This is being introduced by Councilman Troyer. We'll place this in the Legislative Committee.
That's all I have, Jim.
Council, does anyone else have legislation to be introduced? Any other members of council? Okay, seeing no other members to have anything introduced, that concludes the items under letter J. We have no items under letter K, so we'll move to letter L, which is remarks from the audience on any subject matter. This is the time in the meeting where if anyone from the audience wants to comment or extend some comments to council, they come to the podium, give your name and address for the record. You can talk on any subject matter, or you can talk on the two ordinances that we have on tonight's agenda. One is to provide a contract between the Cuyahoga County General Health District and the City of Brook Park, and the other one deals with adopting the building code. So at this time, if anyone wants to come forward, give your name and address for the record. The only thing I ask is while you're speaking, if there's a point of order called, that you would stop talking until the chair has a chance to rule on the point of order. So,
Well, you gotta do it. It's the last year for this to be the last time. Liz Saris, 23065 Cedar Point Road. I just came up to the podium to wish you guys all a happy Thanksgiving. It was nice knowing all of you. And this is the last year you'll see me too, because I'm moving. But anyway, I just want to wish you guys all a happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year and all that. But that's all I got to say, because that's all that needs to be said. So you guys, well, take care, and I wish you the best, and I'm moving, and you guys will all be relieved. Take care. That's all. Thanks. Hey, gotta be nice sometime. Nobody else? Come on.
anyone else want to come to the podium for audience participation? Okay, seeing no one else coming forward, that concludes items under letter L. We'll move to letter M, which is introduction of ordinances and resolutions on first reading. We'll go to ordinance number 11006-2017.
Introduced by Mayor Coyne, providing for a contract between the Cuyahoga County General Health District and the City of Brook Park, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Motion to suspend?
Support.
There's been a motion to suspend. It's been properly supported. Is there any discussion on suspension? Seeing no discussion, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll on suspension.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Troyer?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
McDonald?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Suspension's been approved.
Move to adopt.
Support.
Been a motion to adopt. It's been properly supported. Is there any discussion on adoption? Seeing no discussion, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll on adoption.
Mancini?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Troyer?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
McDonald?
Yes.
Ordinance number 11006-2017 has been adopted under suspension of the rules. We'll move to item number 2, which is ordinance number 11007-2017.
Introduced by Mayor Coyne, requesting certification to enforce the 2017 Ohio State Building Codes within the City of Brook Park and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Chairman?
Councilman Salvatore?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just received the letter. I think everybody has a copy of it from the law department and from the building department. The ordinance number that was in the original document this evening is the correct number, so no amendment will be necessary. And based on that, I would like to make a motion to suspend.
Support.
There's been a motion to suspend. It's been properly supported. Is there any discussion under suspension? Seeing no discussion, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Sorry.
Oh, Councilman Troyer?
Thank you, Mr. Council President. As the building commissioner stated, and the fact of the matter is, this is already 3 weeks past, not a couple weeks, and it isn't gonna hurt anything. We have, the numbers that we're going by is up in the air. I still have some questions I'm gonna ask. And besides the fact that, it's fast tracking, and there's no reason to fast track this. It's not a true emergency, so therefore I'll be voting no on suspension, as I do. Thank you.
Councilwoman Powers?
I agree with my colleague. There's no reason to call this an emergency, and we just need to give it a little time. It isn't going to make a difference if it's passed now or if it's passed in 2 or 3 weeks. So I will be voting no also.
Any other discussion? Councilman Mancini?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thought the building commissioner came up, explained it pretty well. I thought he was pretty thorough. I'll disagree on this one. If it doesn't make a difference, it doesn't make a difference if we suspend it either. So that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Councilwoman McDonald?
I actually had a question for the building commissioner, but I think he left, so. Or is he here? My statement was that I'm not a fan of making quick decisions either, but what I'm concerned about is if we have a project coming in within the next 2 weeks or this week that wants to start building or wants to do things and they are using these old codes, what is the ramification of what happens? Do we have to pay for them to update things if the codes are that different, or how would that even work?
The only information I could probably provide is just from common sense thinking. We just heard earlier in the meeting that the planning committee and the commission and the board of zoning have canceled their meetings for December, so apparently there's nothing in the works right now, so
At this point,
I mean, there's
Okay.
nothing that's before the city of Brook Park, so I don't think it'll be an impact. I could be wrong though, or I could be told I'm wrong, but
okay.
that's the way I would look at it, that we're not having a planning meeting or a board of zoning next month, because there's nothing out there. Any other discussion on suspension? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll on suspension.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Troyer?
No.
Powers?
No.
McDonald?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
5-2, motion failed.
Okay, the motion to suspend failed, so ordinance number 11007-2017 has had its first reading. That completes the items under letter M under first reading. We have no items under letter N second reading, no items under letter O third reading. So we will move to letter P, which is a motion for adjournment.
Motion so made, Mr. Chairman.
Support.
Motion to adjourn properly supported. I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll on adjournment.
Mancini?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Troyer?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
McDonald?
Yes.
Okay, this meeting is now adjourned at 8:02, and I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving from all the members of council. Thank you very much.